All right, so AI, huh? Ready to go deep because today we are diving way past the headlines.
Let's do it.
You sent us this transcript from an English learning podcast, and I got to admit, at first I was like, English learning? Really? But wow, this is actually like a gold mine for understanding how people feel about AI in the future.
Totally. It's like a raw, unfiltered look at how people react to AI, especially when it comes to their jobs, which this podcast gets into a lot.
Yeah, right off the bat, they start talking about AI taking their jobs, even mentioning ChatGPT. It's kind of wild to think about it, like ChatGPT is already part of how people work and learn every day.
And that's a huge point, how AI is just becoming part of our lives almost without us noticing. Using ChatGPT to learn English, it might seem small, but it shows how AI can be used to personalize education and even professional training. This isn't some far-off thing. It's already happening.
Which kind of brings up that big, scary question, is this good or bad? They even threw out this crazy stat in the podcast, 85 million jobs lost to AI by 2025.
Yeah.
85 million. I mean, where does that leave everyone?
That number definitely makes you stop and think. But it's important to remember that's only one side of the coin. People forget that the same research predicted 97 million new jobs by 2025.
Wait, hold on. More jobs created than lost, so it's not all doom and gloom?
Not at all. Think of it like this. The job market is always changing. It's like a living thing, right? The Industrial Revolution, it changed everything, and now we're seeing another huge shift. Those 85 million jobs. Many of them are probably tasks. AI can do better repetitive stuff, manual labor. But the 97 million new jobs, those need human skills, creativity, critical thinking, problem-solving things AI hasn't figured out yet.
So it's not really AI stealing jobs, it's changing what skills we need. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But 85 million is still a ton of people who need to adapt.
Yeah.
What happens to them in the meantime?
And that's where things get really interesting. The English Learners podcast actually touched on this. They talked about how simply knowing how to use AI could be the difference between keeping your job and, well, not. It's like any big technological change, adapt or get left behind.
So it's not enough to know about AI, you have to know how to use it to your advantage. I bet that's where a lot of the fear comes from, right? People afraid of being replaced by something they don't get.
Exactly. We need to demystify AI, understand what it can do, but also what it can't. This podcast episode, even though it was super casual, it's a great example of how we can talk about this stuff in a way that makes sense.
It's like learning a new language,
Yeah.
the language of AI. And speaking of language, this English podcast, they had some interesting thoughts on AI consciousness. They were debating if AI could ever really think like a human. One of them even called AI an existential threat. Are we in the twilight zone now?
That's a question that's been around forever. It's natural to think about those what-if scenarios, right? Could a machine ever actually feel, be self-aware? We'd definitely have to be aware of that possibility.
But we're not talking about robots taking over like in the movies,
Yeah.
right? We've all seen Terminator.
Not quite. Right now, AI development is focused on very specific tasks, not on recreating the human mind. True artificial general intelligence, the kind that could be a threat, is still just a theory.
Okay, good to know. But even if AI isn't going to turn into Skynet, there's still that impact on jobs to consider. Going back to those 85 million jobs potentially lost makes you wonder, what happens to all those people?
It's a valid concern, definitely. But it's also worth remembering, technological progress has always changed the job market. Look at farming. The tractor replaced millions of farm workers, but it also led to amazing advancements in food production and distribution. The key is to evolve and adapt.
So how do we adapt? What skills matter most in an AI-driven job market?
That's where those uniquely human skills come in. Critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, and complex problem solving. These are the things AI can't replicate. The things that make us human, those are going to be our biggest assets.
It's almost like AI is pushing us to be more human, to focus on what makes us different from machines. That's kind of deep when you think about it.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's not about being scared of AI. It's about seeing its potential on our own. How can we use AI to do more, to create a better future?
It's like we're on the edge of a whole new world. It's up to us to decide what that world's going to look like.
It really is. It's like we have this powerful new tool, right? But we got to learn how to use it the right way, ethically, responsibly. This whole thing has been eye-opening. I mean, who knew an English learning podcast would get us thinking so deeply about the future of AI?
I know, right? It's like they accidentally stumbled onto something really important. AI isn't some abstract thing anymore. It's affecting people's lives now even in something as normal as, learning a language.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about this deep dive. AI isn't stuck in science fiction or labs, it's everywhere. And this podcast, it shows how people are really feeling about it, those everyday worries.
Totally. Like, I get it, change can be scary, but ignoring it isn't the answer. This podcast, even though it wasn't even about AI, really got me thinking about all the ways we're already using AI without even realizing it.
All the time. Think about those recommendations you get on Netflix or Spotify, or how your GPS avoids traffic. That's all AI. Algorithms constantly learning. And it's only going to get more common.
Okay, so we've established AI is here to stay, and it's going to shake up the job market. But what about those other areas you mentioned before, like healthcare and manufacturing? What's changing there?
Huge potential. Healthcare, for example. AI is analyzing tons of medical images, helping doctors diagnose diseases like cancer way earlier, more accurately too. Imagine the impact if we catch these things sooner.
Wow. It's like having a million super doctors in the background helping out.
Mm.
What are manufacturing? How's AI changing things there?
Imagine factories where robots and people work together, each doing what they're best at. AI robots doing those risky, repetitive jobs perfectly, while the human workers focus on the stuff that needs creativity, problem solving.
So it's not replacing jobs. It's like giving workers superpowers.
Exactly, and that's just the start. AI can optimize those complex supply chains, develop new materials, even create completely new products. This tech can revolutionize how we design, manufacture, distribute stuff globally.
It's crazy when you really think about it. AI isn't just robots and algorithms. It's solving real problems, making people's lives better in concrete ways.
And that's why we need to be talking about it. We can't just focus on the hype or the fear. We have to understand what AI can really do. How can we use it to tackle those big problems like climate change, food shortages, access to education?
It's like we're at the beginning of something completely new, but we get to decide what that looks like. It really does feel that way. Like we're not just talking about ones and zeros here, but about what matters to us, what we prioritize, what kind of future we're trying to build.
Exactly. It's about making choices, right? About how we develop AI, how we use it, making sure it fits with, our values as humans.
And that's where it gets really interesting because it's not just about what AI can do, it's about what we want it to do.
Absolutely. And we need to be having these conversations, not just like tech people, but everyone in schools, in companies, even just at home. The future of AI, we're the ones who decide what that looks like.
So where do we go from here? What's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this whole deep dive into AI?
This English learning podcast, as random as it was, it showed us that AI isn't some far-off thing. It's already part of our lives. So I think the biggest thing is approach AI with curiosity, not fear. Learn about it, ask questions, don't be afraid of it.
You heard it here, folks. AI and you. And it's not just a title, it's the world we live in now. And
Yeah.
hey, who knows? Maybe the next big AI breakthrough will come from someone who's just as surprised as we were to be having this conversation.
Wouldn't that be something?
It sure would. That's it for this deep dive into AI and you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions.